So my talk will be DME beyond retinal vessels. Thanks to new studies about retinal imaging and ocular fluid biomarkers, now we are aware that we have to think about different mechanisms underlying that sustain and are at the base of the development of diabetic macular edema. And for some of them are considered new biomarkers, and there are evidence for them that may help us to understand which treatment we have to choose, and which some of them will be biomarkers of visual outcomes with some evidence. So we have to think about the neurovascular unit, where different elements, not only vessels but also other cells, are involved in the pathophysiologic mechanism of the development of DME. So now we are aware that we don't have to consider in the pathophysiologic mechanism of the development of DME only vasculopathy, but also neurodegeneration, reactivity, and inflammation are all involved in the DME development. And thanks to the fluid biomarkers and study investigating aqueous and humor and the vitreous, and Julia will talk about it later, now we know that we don't have to consider only vascular endothelial growth factor, but there are also inflammatory cytokines, other important markers of target for treatment, and now we have some proof that we have biomarkers of glia cells, which are increased in the aqueous humors. And so now we have new actors, the retinal glial cells. And the involvement of the Muller cells have been demonstrated since the very early phases of the diabetic disease. Even in patients with no retinal clinical sign of retinopathy, we have an increase, for instance, of the inner nuclear layer thickness at the OCT. And this layer is the layer where we have the body of the Muller cells. And in patients with diabetic retinopathy and DME, we have an increase in the aqueous humors of biomarkers of Muller cell activation, like as aquaporin 4 and GFAP. And if we think about the role of the deep vascular complex, the intermediate and the deep capillary plexus, Enrico will talk about it later, and we think where the different vascular layers, plexuses are located, they are up and down the inner nuclear layer, still again the site of the body of the Muller cells. And the involvement and the Muller cells impairment has been demonstrated in some patients in which there is a new OCT finding, which is called the drill, the disorganization of the retina inner layer. And we have recently demonstrated that there is an increase of GFAP, which is a marker of Muller cell activation in this patient, where we can find these new OCT biomarkers. And these new OCT biomarkers, which is definitely under investigation, which is considered a new OCT finding, is also a marker of visual outcome during DME treatment. And it looks like that it better responds to the intravitreal injection of steroid compared to the anti-VEGF, and still again underline the role of Muller cells in DME and visual function. And another important retinal glial cells is the retinal microglia, which are resident immune cells in the retina, and they are located in specific retinal layers. But when they are activated, like during diabetes, they modify their morphology and they change their residence location, moving from their side to different layers and in the outer retinal too. And these microglia, when it's activated, they produce pro-inflammatory cytokine and chemokines. They are responsible for neuroinflammatory pathway and the tissue damage in the retina. And in diabetes, it has been demonstrated that we have activation of microglia cells, which combine in cluster of microglia, and they are located in the inner, but in the outer retinal too. And the same we can observe a similar features, specific OCT biomarkers, which are the hyperreflective foci, which we can observe in patients with diabetes. These foci, those spots, different name, different site, different OCT features, of course, and they can be observed in the inner and the outer retina and the choroidal too. And they have different features and different pathogenesis according to their OCT findings. As a matter of fact, if we analyze specific hyperreflective foci with these characteristics, they are retinal vessels. Otherwise, when we have hyperreflective foci of great dimension, they are exudates, and when they are very small, so with this specific feature, they are hyperreflective foci, which are microglia cell activation. And they are associated with an increase of microglia biomarkers in the aqueous humors, and some of these specific microglia cells have been, these specific spots are located, observed, are increased in specific different retinal disease and associated with the subretinal fluid, which is definitely an OCT finding of DME inflammatory phenotype. And they reduce when we have a reduction of the diabetic macular edema. And now the proof that these hyperreflective foci with these specific characteristics located in the inner retina and the outer retina are in animal models definitely cluster of microglia activation, which has been proved in animal models. So in conclusion, think about DME, we have to consider different elements, not only vessels, but also different elements and cells and different pathways in the development of DME. Thank you for your attention.
Any questions? I think in our laboratory, we culture human molar glial cells. And as you said, they respond very quickly and very aggressively to produce pro-inflammatory cytokines like MCP1, even MPP9, and VEGF in response to inflammatory stimuli. So what you are saying is that definitely molar cells are a major player in diabetic macular edema.
Definitely. And now that we can observe and correlate the Muller cell activation with the specific OCT finding, that definitely will be great to analyze when they are more activated than in different situations.
And my second question, can this help to find more specific modalities of treatment to target molar cell activation?
I think that definitely we will talk about it later during the next presentation. So I'm sure that there will be more to talk about them.
Thank you very much, Elisabetta.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elisabetta. Yes. Okay, we cannot listen nothing.
Okay. Thank you for this presentation. I was wondering about GFAP as a Muller cell activity biomarker. How do you differentiate Muller-derived GFAP from astrocyte-derived GFAP?
Yeah. Definitely, you are true. It's a marker astrocyte too, but it has been demonstrated that in diabetes, there is an increase of GFAP correlated to the Muller cells activations.
Can I add to this? If you do immunohistochemistry to normal retina, resting molar glial cells never express GFAP. They only express it in reactive cells under pathologic conditions such as diabetes and other vascular diseases. It's a marker of molar glial cell activation. But it is normally expressed by resting astrocytes, but not by molar cells.
Yeah. And in the same time in diabetes, astrocytes are the first cells undergoing apoptosis. You don't find more astrocytes when the diabetes is produced inside the retina. So this imbalance is toward the activity of Müller cells, not only in culture, but also in pathologic samples.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this interesting question. We move on. We move on with the proof of concept, what Elisabetta said about the situation pathophysiologically. We see what happens inside the human eyes. Julia is presenting the proof of concept, aqueous humor liquid biopsy.